Hey everyone, it's Mad Hatted here, and today I felt like doing a deck tech on a deck that I've been playing a fair amount in real life. I don't have the cards for it online yet, but hopefully in the future we'll pick it up and I can record some videos with it. But I can still show you the deck tech of it. So basically this is from the base, Deceiver Exarch Pestermite Splinter Twin deck. If you guys know the combo with that, you put a Deceiver Exarch into play, or Pestermite. They have the same effect as when they come to play, you can tap a permanent or untap a permanent. And then you put a Splinter Twin on the creature, and you get to tap the creature to make a copy of it. And when the copy comes into play, you get to untap a permanent. So you untap the original Deceiver Exarch with Twin on it, and then you make another token, and you keep on doing the same process of untapping the original one to make a new token, and all the tokens have haste, and then that will be an infinite damage combo that will kill them on the turn. So, I mean, most of you guys probably understand that already. Splinter Twin's a deck that's been in Modern forever, so the baseline of it is pretty, pretty iconic. But the new thing that's really interesting about this list is that, I mean, we're also playing Grixis, but people have been doing that for a while. But it's that we're playing Jace, Vryn's Prodigy, which is a new card from Magic Origins. I guess not like super new now that Battle for Zendikar is basically coming out. I'm recording this video on the Tuesday after the new ban list came out, which just said that nothing changed in Modern, no unbans, no bans, and I wanted to just wait to do video stuff until that list came out to make sure that Modern was getting shook up. I didn't think it was, but just making sure. But anyways, for the next few months at least, this will probably be unchanged, or the format will probably go unchanged in terms of metagame. It doesn't look like Battle for Zendikar has anything too crazy other than the new lands, dual land cycle, which I think is pretty cool, but I don't think it's right for this deck. But anyways, Jace, Vryn's Prodigy, is it's a blue colorless, so a 2-drop creature that you can tap it to draw a card, discard a card. So Merfolk Loot ability. But if there's 5 or more cards in your graveyard after you resolve that, then you get to flip it into a planeswalker. So it's one of these new cycles of these creatures that flip into planeswalkers. And the great thing about this card is it's like a 2-mana drop. So on turn 3 potentially you could loot, flip it to a planeswalker, and either uptick it up to 6 loyalty or downtick it down to 2. But you get a flashback, or not flashback. You get to use a card from your graveyard. The -3 ability kind of replicates Snapcaster in the sense that you get to play a card from your graveyard and cast it. I did specifically say it wasn't flashback because that is relevant. If you play a card off of Jace's -3 ability from your graveyard and they use a spell like Remand, which would put it back to the hand, it actually will go back to your hand, unlike Snapcaster Mage with flashback, because with flashback the card gets exiled as you cast it from your graveyard. This is not the case with Jace. It says if the card we put in the graveyard, exile it instead. But if it gets remanded, it actually goes back to your hand, which in one sense makes it better than Snapcaster Mage. You might see that I'm playing 4 Jaces here and 2 Snapcasters, and people are like, that's crazy. Snapcaster Mage is really insane. Snapcaster has flash, and it can have the ability of playing something from your graveyard the turn you draw it. While Jace, you have to wait a turn to activate the ability and flip it. And that's definitely fair. I think they're both powerful cards in different regards. I've been thinking of Jace more like Dark Confidant, in the sense that it's a powerful drop on turn 2, and if you untap with it on turn 3, then it's really good. A lot of the time it's going to die, but if it untaps, it's really strong. Now, because we're playing these Jaces, I found that one strategy that was very useful with them is having discard spells. So Inquisition of Kozilek and Thoughtseize are both very powerful discard spells in the Modern format. And the sequence of going a turn 1 discard spell into turn 2 Jace, into turn 3 flipping your Jace, maybe flashbacking your discard spell, it just puts you in such a good spot, I feel, in most matchups. But I mean, in general, having discard spells is something that people like to do when you have a combo deck like this combo, because you can play a discard spell, see what their hand is, see if they have any way to interact with your combo. Maybe you can get rid of the Abrupt Decay or things like that that you normally wouldn't be able to interact with normal counter spells. This deck only plays 3 Remand, by the way, and it doesn't have the Snares or Dispels main or Cryptics, because you have to fill the slots with discard spells. But like I said, going turn 1 discard, maybe clearing out a removal spell to get rid of the Jace, and then turn 2 playing your Jace, and then turn 3 making sure it can flip. It's pretty strong play. Now, you do need to have 5 cards in your graveyard to flip the Jace, so not 100% every time it's going to flip on turn 3. You need to have use 2 fetch lands and play 2 spells and then use the ability for it to flip on turn 3, but that's not like the most unlikely with 14 1-drops. And we're also playing 1 Miser's Thought Scour, which usually will just get Jace flipped like right away. But anyways, this is kind of more of a controlling shell of Splinter Twin as opposed to full combo. As you see, we only have 3 twins here. Because we have like the looting ability off of Jace and we have the discard effects, we don't need to be as hard on making sure we get the combo or as many pieces and maybe like having to go off twice, because we can usually strip their hand and make sure that just, the first time we try to go off will be good. And you don't want to have too many twins in your hand. It is nice that Jace looting can discard extra cards that aren't useful, so in some regards having 4 twins wouldn't be as bad because of that, but I like having 3 twins in this list. Like 3 twins and then 5 creatures that you can put a twin on to instantly win the game. But this deck is also fairly good at playing a controlling role and just grinding them out with a fair game plan. And you see we have Tassigers, which pretty strong card in Modern these days. I like having 2 of those in our main deck here. The black cards are like for Inquisition, the hard removal spells, as opposed to having to play like Roast. Kolaghan's Command is just a really good card in Modern, and Tassiger. If you also notice with our land base, we've added Darkslick Shores and Blackleaf Cliffs, just 1 of each, because we want more sources that we can go turn 1 Inquisition or Thoughtseize and not have to take as much damage in the format. If we're playing against a mono red burn deck or some like Naya deck, or we're playing against even like the mirror matchups, life total could be important. So having these lands, these fast lands, are kind of nice. Also, I have 2 Creeping Tar Pits because I feel like this deck is also very good at playing a Jund style game, which I guess I should have mentioned before. But this deck feels a lot more like a Jund deck, which if people don't understand what that means, it means like Jund is a deck with a lot of discard spells, just a lot of like good value 2-for-1 spells, powerful creatures, and you just kind of grind them out. Now, this deck doesn't have as many powerful creatures like Scavenging Ooze or Tarmogoyf, but I feel like Jace is fairly strong, same with Tassiger. But anyways, the reason why we play Tar Pits is because a lot of our games are going to go like, we're going to play some discard spells, we're going to strip their hand, and they're not going to have too much going on, and like maybe we won't have too much going on unless we have like a Jace to get us like continued value. And it's better to have these lands that also double as kill conditions in those kind of games that drag out and we're kind of both top decking and looking for something. So having more lands that do things like utility lands, like we have 1 Lighthouse and 2 Tar Pits in this build, I think is pretty good for the kind of game plan we're playing, which it feels a little bit different than regular twin decks. I know like a lot of twin decks are used to being a tempo deck where it can play a combo game, but it can also do a fair damage roll with like Snapcasters and Lightning Bolts. And we can still do that a bit, but I like it that we're a bit more of a grindy deck. We're a bit fair, I would say, even though we still have a combo that can kill on turn 4. But that's basically the shell of the deck. Like I said, this has only been around for a little while, but people have been liking Jace in Modern, either in Grixis control decks or different twin decks. Now, people have been playing different numbers, like maybe 3 Jaces, 4 Snapcasters. I don't know if I want like too many of those effects that use the graveyard, because I've definitely had times where I don't have enough cards in my graveyard to flashback. But I think having like 6 creatures like Jace/Snapcaster is good. Maybe the split's 3/3, and that's a better split, but I like trying out like these 4 Jaces, new card. I think it's definitely powerful. One of the upsides to Jace over Snapcaster is that every time you play Snapcaster Mage, you have to have 2 mana invested for the Snapcaster and then mana for the spell. While with Jace, you only have to pay 2 mana for Jace up front on turn 2 or whenever you play it. And then after that, when you flip it, you don't need to pay an extra cost on top of just the spell you're casting, which might let you like represent more things on the turn that you want to use cards from your graveyard. But anyways, that's the main deck. I think most of it's pretty standard, like I've explained. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Moving on to the sideboard, there's a few different like sections I have here. This first section is kind of like the control package that we bring in against mostly a lot of other like blue decks, Splinter Twin decks, stuff like that. We have Dispels. Dispel's good in a lot of decks. It's good against all the blue decks that have the exciting counters. It's good against like cryptic commands and things like that, and good for fighting counter wars. Glenelender is also very good at countering stuff. non-creature spells, so it's a bit like more general than Dispel in that sense, but still a good card in these grindy matchups. And then double Keranos, it's good against a lot. It's good against Junk, Twin variants, Grixis variants, things like that. But it's just a very good card at grinding out the game. And I felt like if our deck is going to be more geared towards grinding games down, then having multiple Keranos is a very strong sideboard plan. And especially if we side up into more discard spells, Keranos is very strong. You know, we have a good way of resolving it with all these discards. And then over here we have some Blood Moons, you know, good against Tron, good against Amulet Bloom, sometimes good against Jund and Junk. I feel like Blood Moon's not on the best spot in Modern right now, so I wouldn't fault anyone for deciding to side out, like to not have Blood Moons in their sideboard and just remove them from the 75. But I personally still like them a bit, and for now we'll keep them in. And here's the fourth twin I have, and some people be like, why would you like not have 4 twin main, or why would you have the fourth one in the board? And there are some matchups where the grinding plan is not the best, and where you really just want to like hope that you can just go Exarch, Splinter Twin, kill you as quick as possible. So like against mono red, you want Splinter Twin. Against more like combo decks, like Boggles, you'd want it. You'd want it against Tron, Bloom Titan. You would want it against. You'd want it against like Merfolk and general decks that just like are quicker than you. And like this is one way to make sure that you have a quicker game plan of just comboing them, like you know, like Twin is supposed to do. We have one Spellskite, which is good against a lot of decks. Good against Burn, good against Infect, Boggles. Just like a lot of cards that I can randomly get. It's also fine against a lot of other control decks to protect the combo if you want to side into more of it. Here's kind of our removal spells. We got a Vandal Blast, which is for affinity. I like Vandal Blast over Shatterstorm because being able to do it for 1 mana is very important, and like it's important for the draws where they have like really explosive draws, like turn 1 Ravager, turn 2 Plating attack. It's good for that. Like sometimes you'll even die before Shatterstorm can get played. Then I have like Pyroclasm Anger. I like the split on this. Sometimes you want a Pyroclasm on turn 2, like against mono red. A lot of the times you actually want to bring in Pyroclasm, because if they go like turn 1 Goblin Guy, turn 2 Eidolon, or turn 1 1-drop, turn 1 or 2 more 1-drops, you definitely want Pyroclasm. Anger's a little bit slower, but it's better against Kitchen Finks and Voice of Resurgent effects. And also, it's just a bit bigger, so it can be better against like Merfolk and things like that. Then we have Dismember, which is just general removal. You know, being able to play a removal spell for 1 colorless mana and 4 life could potentially be very strong. People don't expect it. And then finally, Kolaghan's Command. It's good value of, you know, grinding people down, making them discard a card, returning a creature to your hand. It's good for those grindy matchups. I guess it could also go in this column also. So usually you sided it against the same decks you'd side that stuff into. But anyways, this is the sideboard I have right now. Of course, you know, you can do a lot with the sideboard. One thing that was funny, though, is when I originally had the list, I had Jace Architect of Thought on the sideboard, and I sided it in one game, and I had a Jace in play, and I flipped my Jace, Telepath and Bound, and then I had Architect of Thought in my hand, and I'm like, oh, this is awkward, I can't play both of them. So, if you guys don't know how Jace, these flip Planeswalkers work, is you can have Jace, Vryn's Prodigy in play, and play a Jace Planeswalker, like Architect of Thought or Jace Beleren, whatever. But if it flips, then they're both Jace Planeswalker, so you have to choose one. But you can have a non-flipped Jace and a flipped Jace in play at the same time, or like a non-flipped Jace and a other Jace Planeswalker in play at the same time. But anyways, guys, this is basically the deck. You know, showed you guys the deck in the sideboard. It's a cool deck. Definitely, I think if you want to play with Jace, I think is a very powerful modern card, and we're gonna see it for a while. It's not just like a fad. This is definitely one of the shells you can do it in. Otherwise, like Grixis control shells are good for Jace, but I definitely like just having these discard spells, which are powerful against all the linear combo decks there are in Modern right now that could, you know, potentially turn 1 or 2 kill you, like Amulet Bloom or Gristle Shoal. And I also just like the twin, the twin package. And yeah, that's basically the deck. Like I said, I don't have all the cards online, but you know, I might pick them up eventually because this deck's really sweet. And then I'll do some, video matches with it. But for now, this is it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave comments on the section below. Also, feel free to check out my Twitch channel, which I post in the description. I usually stream Modern and Standard there, and yeah, that's basically it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this deck tech on a different take of Splinter Twin, and I'll see you guys around.